Hi, my name is Robert Chelle with Chelle Law, and I'm an attorney that assists nurse practitioners with employment contract and independent contractor agreement issues. Today, I'm going to talk about independent contractor agreements for nurse practitioners. So, in what scenario does it make sense to sign an independent contractor agreement? What are the main differences between being an employee and an independent contractor? And then some red flags you need to think about if you're about to enter into an independent contractor relationship. So first, the main difference between an employment agreement and an independent contractor agreement is, as an independent contractor, you'll receive a 1099 at the end of the year. You'll have no taxes taken out of your compensation. Whatever the contracted rate is, that is what you will receive in your bank account. As an employee, you receive a W-2 at the end of the year, and FICA and all the other taxes are taken out of your compensation prior to receiving it. So that's the main difference between the two positions. Generally, as an independent contractor, you're not going to get benefits. So health, vision, dental, life, disability, retirement, maybe they'll cover your malpractice, but normally if you are a true independent contractor, you're not going to get any kind of benefits. It should be shorter in length as far as notice, meaning an independent contractor agreement should be easy to get in, easy to get out of. I mean, kind of the point of this is it's generally reserved for people who are in a part-time position. Maybe you're working PRN, or a few times a month, maybe once a week. The biggest problem is many employers will misclassify an employee as an independent contractor simply to avoid paying employment tax. Employment tax depends upon what state you're in, but usually the employer has to pay around 8 to 12% in employment tax, and in order to avoid that, they'll just classify someone as an independent contractor. Now, what are the kind of risks of being misclassified? Well, it's possible the IRS or perhaps the state audits the employer, looks at the agreements, and then determines that an independent contractor is actually not an independent contractor, but is an employee. And so fines can be assessed, back taxes can be assessed. And so the specific language in the agreement is very important. Many agreements, the employer or the organization you're working for as an independent contractor is going to shift the burden of any of those taxes or fees, penalties, any of that kind of stuff back to the provider. Meaning if there is some kind of reclassification of the nurse practitioner, it would be the nurse practitioner's duty to pay those, and that is something you cannot do. 9 times out of 10, it's not your choice of whether you're an independent contractor or not. And so if they're forcing you to sign this agreement and they're the ones that are likely misclassifying you, you shouldn't be responsible to have to pay their attorney's fees, the penalties and back taxes, any of that kind of stuff. So be very careful that there isn't language in the contract that shifts the blame and the responsibility for those things to the nurse practitioner. So that's probably the biggest red flag you need to look for. Now, the IRS does come out with, or has, a kind of a 20-factor test that you can look to of whether someone is actually functioning as an employee or an independent contractor. And a few of those things are control, meaning is the schedule completely dictated by the employer? Is it exclusive, meaning can you only work for the employer and you're not allowed to work anywhere else? And then what are they providing to you? Do you have to provide your own equipment, tools? Do you have access to rooms, their administrative, the EMR? So when you kind of balance all of those things, it would likely determine whether you are an independent contractor or an employee. So there are certainly situations where being an independent contractor makes sense, fits the facts of what you're doing for them, and it's appropriate, but making certain that you're not being misclassified is important. Well, if you have any questions about an independent contractor agreement or employment agreement, feel free to contact my law firm at the information listed below in the description. And I appreciate you watching the video. All right, thanks. Take care.